Om Sri Sai Ram. My humble pranams at Bhagavan's lotus feet. I'm honored to welcome and introduce Brother Fize Mohammed from Trinidad and Tobago. He will be sharing his journey with Sai with all of us. Brother Fize had unique honor of being an SSC coordinator, Bal Vikas Guru, for 3 decades. He served Bhagavan as National Young Adult Coordinator, National Devotional Coordinator, and later as Deputy Central Coordinator for 7 years until 2021. Currently, he is the advisor to Sri Sathya Sai Global Council for West Indies, Trinidad. He educates himself constantly in Sai principles, and he attends all the conferences. He was an attendee at Overseas Devotee SSC Conference course, first EHV conference in 1986, and 3 World Youth Conferences, 97, 99, and 2007. He was a featured speaker at Prasanthi Nilayam in 1999 in World Youth Conference and 2015 World Conference. He has spoken on Sai experience and morality in very many countries of the world. He hosts a unique weekly Sai radio program on life and teachings of Bhagavan and a bi-weekly web program, Awake, Unite, and Inspire, in which we had been a participant. The reason why I mentioned about our participation is that this is a program where devotees are allowed to share their Sai experience with the rest of the world, and one could see his interview technique that is in and of itself an art form, so skillful, friendly, unnerving, and absolutely very relaxed for everyone to speak about the Sai experience as if they are speaking with Bhagavan Sai. Fize is a financial consultant and accountant in private practice in Trinidad. And currently, as I said, he has the unique role of Sri Sathya Sai Global Council Advisor for the West Indies. I respectfully request Brother Fize to address the gathering. Jai Sai Ram.
I offer my most loving and humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of my dear Mother Sai, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, embodiments of the divine Atma, embodiments of divine love, loving, loving Sai Ram to one and all. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Sai Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. I deem it a privilege and an honor to be amongst you through the grace and divine will of our beloved Mother Sai, to share and to receive his love. There was once an old lady who lived at the bank of a particular river, and every morning she would sit and meditate for some time. And one fine day, while doing this, she saw in the river something glittering. When she looked closely, she saw it was a chunk of diamond. So she reached into the water, took the chunk of diamond, and put it into her bag. A weary, wandering, tired traveler, after some time, was coming down the hill towards her home and saw the old lady. He approached her and he said, "Mother, I am tired, I am hungry. Can you give me something to eat?" Unhesitatingly, the old lady reached into her bag to take out a sandwich she had prepared that morning. But while doing so, the traveler saw the diamond. And he said, "Mother, can you also give me the diamond?" And without blinking an eye, she took the diamond and placed it in his hands. And immediately his tiredness went. He no longer felt hungry. He was so happy inside to receive the diamond, because in his mind he felt that this would buy him almost anything in life. So he ran down the hill very enthusiastically. But after a couple of hours, he came back up the hill to meet the old lady. She was very surprised to see him. And she said, "Why have you come?" He said, "Mother, I have a small request." And she said, "What is it?" He said, "I want you to give me that which is inside of you that allowed you to give me the diamond." And brothers and sisters, there lie within each and every one this diamond of spirituality, this priceless treasure of the Atma. And when we are able to access and live from that space within, every thought, every word, every action becomes a blessing to the world. And everything else outside of ourselves loses value and pales into comparison with this priceless joy and treasure that lies within. And this is the mission of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. His primary mission is the awakening of the inherent divinity within each and every one of us, and allowing that divinity to manifest through the 5 fundamental human values. Brothers and sisters, I was born in a Muslim home in the southern part of Trinidad, a tiny little island in the West Indies. But I also come from a broken home. My father was a chronic alcoholic. My eldest brother was an alcoholic. There were 6 brothers and 1 sister, my sister being the youngest. One of my other brothers was a drug addict. One was an epileptic. And so almost every day there were quarrels, confusion, both verbal and physical abuse. But in the midst of that, my mother was the glue that kept the family together. Although she suffered physically from the behavior of my father when he would get drunk and lose his control and temper, she was very persistent, as a mother would, to keep the family close together. And every morning I would see her at around 5:30 a.m. kneeling and praying. Even though we came from an Islamic background, she loved Jesus the Christ. And she would be praying to Jesus for one thing, for her family unity to be restored. And this really touched my heart, and I used to really feel the pain that she would feel. But amidst all of this, at the tender age of 16, there was this pull that I had towards divinity. And there were three questions that preoccupied my mind at that time. Who am I? Why have I been placed on the face of the earth? And what is my purpose? I started to find these answers by looking at books on the power of positive thinking, but realized after a while that they only dabbled with the mind. And then I started to study the saints and sages of India. And I remember reading the very first book, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, and then reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. And this particular book had a tremendous impact on my life at that time, because I could feel in every word the tremendous and one-pointed bhakti of this great saint, Ramakrishna. And then I studied the teachings of Ramana Maharishi on the self-inquiry, who am I? And the Sufi mystics, Jalaluddin Rumi and Imam Ghazali. And because in our home every day, with the environment being as it is, I built a little room at the back of the house, which became like my sanctuary. And often I would spend hours there in reading, contemplation, and meditation. And there was one particular prayer I had. Although in Islam God is formless, I used to pray to this formless God, to have a relationship with God that I can see and touch and hold and converse with. That was the yearning that I had at the tender age of 16. And when I came into contact with the teachings and the life of these great masters, it brought a lot of joy and connection within myself. At that time, I used to attend the mosque in my village. And one day, I meet the imam's son who lived next to the mosque. And I found in him a very universal spiritual aspirant. Though from an Islamic background, he was very universal in his outlook. And we became very close. He was 15 years my senior. And often we would have long discussions, beautiful discussions on spirituality, on who am I, and how to access that divinity within. And we would talk about all the masters, Kirchhoff, Ouspensky, Ramakrishna, etc. And then one day in 1979, he brings a book and he says, Fize, I want you to read this book. When I look on the cover of the book, I see this bushy-haired African-looking guy. And I said, Khalid, who is this? He says emphatically, this is God in human form. And then I blurted out, you must be mad. How can you call him God? He's simply a mortal. Against the background that in Islam, you don't associate partners with Almighty Allah. What brought about even more confusion is when Sai Baba said, I am God, but you are God also. And then he told me, Fize, read this book with an open mind. And so I took this book home, and then from the very first page, I became so attracted and moved by the words. I read the entire book in one sitting and yearned now to know more about Satya Sai Baba because of that divine attraction. All that we had discussed, my brother and I, Khalid, over the last 2 years, I found in the pages of this book. And what really stood out for me more than anything else was the universality of his message. When he says there is only one religion, the religion of love. There is only one caste, the caste of humanity. There is only one language, the language of the heart. There is only one God, and he is omnipresent. When I read where he said, let the different faiths exist, Let them flourish. Let the glory of God be sung in all the languages in a variety of tunes. Let that be the ideal. Respect the differences between each of the faiths and recognize them as valid as long as they do not extinguish the flame of unity. When he says that I have not come to disturb or destroy anyone's faith, but to confirm each in his own, so that the Muslim becomes a better Muslim, the Christian becomes a better Christian, the Hindu becomes a better Hindu. When he says, I have not come to speak on behalf of any particular sect, creed, or religion, I have come to awaken the inherent divinity in each one of you. Continue your worship of your chosen God along the lines already familiar to you. There is no need to change your chosen form of God and adopt a new one when you have heard me or seen me, for all names are mine and all forms are mine. And devotees, these teachings really touched my heart. And so I sought out more Sai Baba books, everything that I could put my hand on. I began to read. But amidst the divine attraction, there arose a very big confusion. I could not reconcile the formless aspect of Allah with the form of Sai Baba. I felt guilty that I was going against the fundamental belief of my own religion. And so this doubt led to confusion and uncertainty for many, many months. I sought out 2 Muslim devotees in Trinidad who were believers in Sai Baba. And I would sit with them for hours, discussing how they were able to reconcile. And then one day I was guided to go back in the mosque. And that day I prayed sincerely from my heart to Almighty Allah. And I said, Almighty Allah, show me the truth as to who is this Sri Satya Sai Baba. And I was led back into the pages of the Holy Quran, where Allah says in the Holy Quran, Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein. So he has to be within. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, once said, he who knows himself knows God. But the verse that really caused a shift in my belief and consciousness concerning this particular confusion was one of the fundamental principles of Islam called the Declaration of Faith. In Islam, if you're a Muslim, you have to declare it by saying, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. The Orthodox translation of that verse is, there is no God but Allah, and the Holy Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. But the Sufis, the mystical men of Islam, interpret the same verse, not that there is no God but Allah, but that there is nothing but Allah. And so my doubts were being removed. I remember in the early or late 70s going to the very first Sai Baba satsang in what we call our Mother Center in 1979. And the first bhajan session was so captivating, so soulful. I felt so much of joy and bliss and happiness that every week I would go. And at that time, I had no vehicle, so I used to travel to this center. And because the bhajan session was so blissful, as soon as the arti would finish and the satsang would finish, I would run down the step and jump into a car and go home, because I wanted to keep that feeling, that inner connection, that joy that I felt in the satsangs. And after 2 years of reading, discussion, and contemplation, I said, now I have to go myself to see this Sri Satya Sai Baba. And at that time, an invitation was issued where Swami was having a Bal Vikas at that time, a Bal Vikas overseas guru training program in Prashanti Nilayam. And although I was not a guru, I put my name and they accepted me. And we arrived in Prashanti Nilayam on the morning of Guru Purnima 1981. We were ushered quickly out of the taxi into the Purnachandra Hall, and I had never seen so many people gathered at one time. The entire Purnachandra Hall was packed to capacity, and we sat way down at the back. And after a few moments, there's a hush and a silence, and the curtains part, and I see this 5-foot form dressed in an orange gown float across the stage. And immediately I feel a connection with Sai. For the next 30 days, with every divine discourse, with every interaction with devotees, with every darshan, with every materialization of vibhuti, my doubts about who he really is were being removed internally. And then somebody told me that Sai Baba had built a mosque in Puttaparthi, and that really piqued my interest. And I inquired and actually went to the mosque and did namaz. But there's a beautiful story and experience that surrounded this construction of this mosque. The Muslims in Puttaparthi had to trek a long distance to the nearest one. During the holy month of Ramadan, this could mean as much as 5 times daily in the blistering heat. And Satya Sai Baba, out of his love and compassion for the Muslim community in Puttaparthi, constructed a mosque of architectural brilliance. And in October 1978, during what we call the Eid-ul Fitr festival, which marks the end of the holy month of Ramadan, Bhagwan inaugurated the mosque. With a gentle wave of his hand, he materialized pendants with Arabic inscriptions and gave it to the mosque board members. And then Swami gave a most profound and deeply moving message about Islam. And devotees, I'd like to quote one part of this message in his own words. This is what Swami said. Ramzan, which is the holy month of fasting, is the month when the Holy Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace. It was a divine communication, a Bhagavad Vani reaching him through waves or tarangas of divine vibrations. The Vedas too were revealed in the same manner by God to the rishis. The Bible, the Avesta, and the other great scriptures of other religions also had similar divine inspiration as the reason for their validity. Since the Quran originated from God, Bhagwan said, it cannot be changed or modified to suit changed conditions. They are all eternal verities. The Quran contains exposition of the 5 vital principles or pancha prana of human life: mercy, truth, sacrifice, love, and tolerance. These principles, really basic to the good life, are emphasized in all religious texts of humanity. If one assimilates the truths declared in the Holy Quran, they can live in full concord with all others. And then Swami said, no religion praises violence or falsehood. And this really touched me, devotees, in the way that Swami gave this message. And inherent in the words is the universality of the message, that thread that runs through all the religions, showing the unity. Today, you could hear the holy call of the Muslims, called the Azan, reverberating through the village of Puttaparthi and the ashram, testifying to the oneness and the universal message of our beloved Sai Allah. Brothers and sisters, when I returned home to Trinidad from that particular trip, there were many, many requests by devotees for Brother Fize to share his experience. They were intrigued as to how come a Muslim with a background that Allah is formless could now believe in a form. But one of the most feared things in my life was public speaking. I could not stand before a crowd and speak. And I said, Swami, how am I going to do this? So what I did, I wrote down everything I had to say. And I remember delivering the first message in 1981 when I came back. And while doing that, my whole body was trembling. My heart was racing. I used to suffer with bad migraine headaches and I would sweat profusely. And I said, Swami, this cannot go on. In another interview I had with Swami, he said, you must have more self-confidence. And I started practicing that while doing the messages. And there was a little bit more benefit in it, but still the fear persisted. At that time, I was the vice president of the Muslim youth group I used to attend. I used to lead the namaz from time to time and call the holy call to prayer called the azan. Then one year, during the holy month of Ramadan, there's a special night called Laylatul Qadr. It is similar to Mahashivratri, where we wake the entire night chanting the name of God. In the mosque, people read the entire Quran. And we do something called zikr, which is repeating the glories of Almighty Allah. And beloved devotees, when Swami said in his divine message that the Holy Quran cannot be changed, at a tender age when Muslim children are just 3 and 4 years old, they are taught to memorize the entire Quran. 40 chapters, 114 verses. So if you were to burn all the Holy Qurans in the world today, they can be reproduced in its pristine purity the next day because they are all memorized. And Muslims are supposed to have photographic memories because they are born and grown up with it. And someone who has memorized and can reproduce the Quran is called a Hafiz. And it's such a really beautiful and inspiring thing to hear a little child recite the entire Quran in Arabic, a most beautiful language. So that particular night, in order to pass the time, I take a book of Satya Sai Baba with me in the mosque. And one of the mosque board members saw the book. And they knew that Brother Fize had gone to India to meet the Sai Baba. So they was concerned now because they knew he was a holy man in India. So an emergency meeting was held to discuss Brother Fize's position and future in the mosque. And after a lengthy meeting, this was the decision taken. Immediately, they took away my position as vice president of the youth group. They banned me from leading the namaz and calling the holy call to prayer. One of my brothers in the mosque said, Fize, you are no longer a Muslim. You've changed your religion. You've converted to something else. Leave. One of my other brothers came to me and he said, Fize, forget this Sai Baba and come and pray to the only true God, Almighty Allah. And then I told him, I said, I prayed to Almighty Allah to show me the truth as to who Satya Sai Baba is. And to that, I must remain loyal and truthful. The very people I had grown up with and considered to be like my parents, like my brothers and sisters, were now passing me, not even uttering the Islamic greeting. and I began to feel that I was an outcast in the mosque. And after a while, I was excommunicated from the mosque. And it hurt and pained me because these were people I literally grew up with. But my mother used to attend the mosque, so I would normally drop her at the gate and pick her up without going inside. But my beloved Sai Allah would create a divine leela that would even shock and astonish me. In doing some of the messages in Trinidad, a few members of the mosque was invited to attend. And after about a year, one gentleman, about 65 years old, who used to go to the mosque, he called me and he said, "Brother Fize, I am celebrating my 65th birthday in the mosque, and I want you to do the Fitya message." The very same mosque I was literally thrown out of. And I said, "Hey Bhagwan, daya karo." I prayed to Swami for guidance. And this is what came. I took some of the universal teachings of Swami, and all are universal. Love all, serve all, help ever, hurt never. A pure thought from a pure heart is better than a prayer. Service to man is service to God. God is love and love is God. I took those teachings and weaved them into the life and practice of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, because that is what he embodied in his life. The Holy Prophet Muhammad was called El Amin, which simply means the truthful one. In his 62-year lifespan, he had never uttered a lie. And it tied in so nicely with Bhagwan being Satya Sai Baba. And devotees, after this particular message, the same mosque board members came up to me and they said, "Brother Fize, what a beautiful message. Where did you get these quotes from?" And now I had to be very careful what I say. And I said, there's a great humanitarian walking the face of the earth, changing lives and making the world a better place. And there I began to feel a little softening up in their hearts towards the teachings and towards Sai Baba. Then one day my mother had a maulud at home. A maulud is a prayer gathering where they come and read the Holy Quran, they explain and they sing Islamic songs. And then from within, I get the guidance. I told my mother, I said, "Mom, I would like to say a few words." And I don't know where this bravery and courage came from. It could only come from Sai. And I told them, I said, whatever religion you may belong to, none is greater than the other. And that whether you are believers in Islam, Christianity, or Hinduism, once you have a pure heart and live a good life, you will reach your goal. And again, the Muslim board members who conducted that Maulud came and said, "Brother Fize, what a beautiful message." And it all came from the teachings, the universal teachings of my beloved Mother Sai. Swami once said, Islam, I-S-L-A-M, means I shall love all mankind. In many, many years in Prashanti Nilayam, the college students have enacted beautiful plays on the teachings of the Holy Quran and the life of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. So beautiful, and singing these beautiful Islamic songs. Brothers and sisters, in reading and understanding and practicing as much as I can the teachings of Sai Baba, I have learned to understand better the 5 fundamental principles of Islam. And as Baba says, be a good Muslim. At this point, I'd just like to sing an Islamic song that we sing in Trinidad that forms part of our devotional singing session. And just to share with you the words, La ilaha illallah, it simply means there's nothing but Allah. Muhammadur Rasulullah, the Holy Prophet Muhammad is his messenger. Subhanallah simply means glory be to God. And we sing this in bhajan style. So please join with me. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah.
La ilaha illallah.
La ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah.
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 Subhanallah. 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 Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah.
La ilaha illallah.
La ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah.
La ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
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 Subhanallah.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. Muhammadur Rasulullah. Brothers and sisters, I want to go back a little bit to my family situation. When my mother used to pray to restore unity and family in our home, it used to really pain my heart to see her suffering like this. And one day I prayed to Bhagwan and I said, Swami, I will give my life to you. But I want one promise in return, that you will restore family unity in our home, if only to make my mother happy. My mother was my greatest inspiration. I saw qualities like sacrifice, prayer. I understood how to pray from a sincere heart. She would sacrifice her happiness, her resources, her time. She would take physical and verbal blows in order to keep this family together. And when I began to read what Swami had said about devotion to parents, I can now fully understand how important that sadhana is. In the Holy Bible it is said, honor thy mother and thy father, so that thy years may be long upon the face of the land. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, said, paradise lies at the feet of thy mother. And we are all aware in Hinduism to revere the parents as the very embodiment of God himself, our first gurus, our first teachers. Swami says, on the laps of mothers lie the future of our nation. And I remember his own words when he says, in the Vedas it is declared that the mother and the father have to be revered as divine. The mother's is the first face that the child sees. Ma is the first syllable that the child utters. The agony of the mother at the loss of a child is something that is inconsolable. Swami says you will find in every home pictures of God kept in a special place for puja or worship. But let me tell you that in every home there are living gods whom the sages and saints want us to revere and worship. They are your parents. Think of all the care, all the sacrifice, all the sleepless nights, all the trials and tribulations that they have undergone and are presently undergoing for your sake. And then he warns us, do not be rude and raw to them. Be soft and sweet in your speech. Obey them, for they know much more of the world and its dangers than you do. The mother is the goddess who has given us this body, this blood, this individuality, and as such she deserves all the veneration and worship that we can shower at her lotus feet. By disregarding your parents, Swami says, you will never be able to prosper in life. You may be able to repay back any debt, but the debt you owe to your mother, you will never be able to repay.